Welcome everyone to Gone Remote, presented by Validity. I'm your host, Megan Demena, Senior Marketing Manager here at Validity. Working remotely as an entire organization, even without the global situation we're currently in right now, is a massive challenge. Many would argue that the sales team's facing the biggest challenge within a company to make it all work. So today we've brought together a wonderful group of SDRs and BDRs, and we're discussing new challenges they're facing, how their teams are being held accountable, and how they've been able to adapt. So joining us today, we have Massimo Severino, SDR at Wistia, Julianne Thompson, Head of Sales Development at Drift, Tim Utley, BDR Manager at Alice, Melissa Morello, Senior Manager of Sales Development here at Validity. So thanks for joining us. How's everyone doing today?
Great.
Awesome.
All right. So let's start by talking about some of the new challenges you're facing in this new remote world. Julianne, let's start with you.
So first, just want to say I feel so fortunate that we are in a place in an industry that's relatively unaffected, because there are a lot of other professions that are having a much harder time with the transition. But for me personally, it is kind of twofold. So first, when people ask how I'm doing these days, I just say, hey, I'm an extrovert just trying to cope with being socially isolated from the rest of the world. But I think there is a reality to that. Whereas salespeople, like, we drive our energy from other people. And so it's really important that we focus on ways to have that connection, even when we're not face-to-face. And then the second part of it is trying to figure out how our tactical jobs have changed. Do we call? Do we email? What does our prospecting look like? What does our messaging look like? Those types of questions are the most challenging to try to figure out, what our new strategy is, within a matter of time.
Awesome. Massimo, what's your new challenges looking like?
Yeah, I'd echo all the same things. There is no pandemic sales playbook that any of us knew about. Maybe we're trying to write them now, but certainly everyone's kind of trying to figure it all out. And I think it's a really unique time where you have teams and reps who in the past were hitting their numbers and knew exactly what to do and had a total formula. And pretty much everyone now has to scrap that and be innovative and figure out what does work. So it's pretty much the challenge is reshaping your whole sales team and your outreach to, deal with the crisis at hand, which is, by the way, a moving situation, and it's fluctuating and changing at all times. So keeping up with it all at the same time is also a challenge.
Yeah, no big deal, just restructuring everything. So Melissa, Tim, do you guys have any thoughts on the new challenges?
Yeah, I think something that's been pretty unique to this situation is kind of preserving the sanctity of kind of that work-life balance now that they've kind of fused together. Even like, is it okay for me to ask for a day off? Can I take a long weekend? So these are things that we've started to talk about internally. Is like, yeah, please do that. I know the situation's a little bit different, but it's really important for people to take care of themselves mentally, physically, spiritually. So asking for a long weekend just because you're not traveling somewhere, it's not uncouth. And then also just like things that we may have taken for granted, like, being in the office, being able to socialize, and then working from home, making sure you have reliable internet. There's things like that we are now kind of combating on a day-to-day basis that I think, is really going to kind of change the kind of complexion of our industry in terms of how we're selling, how we're operating, and things like that.
Definitely. Melissa, any thoughts?
I think some of the biggest challenges have just been, what does the new normal look like in terms of team calls, team huddles, making sure that everyone still feels like a team and not isolated on an island. Using all of tech. I've never been this grateful for technology. I wish I'd bought stock in Zoom a few months ago. That's all. Because, what a blessing it's been to be able to, hop on a team call with 16 people, and see everybody and have these conversations and, still stay connected, even though we're apart. And, it's been interesting how the new normal, I almost feel like, has us communicating more than ever.
Yeah, it's actually interesting to see how it's going to shape just the new work-life balance and lifestyle moving forward. But that is a perfect segue into selling. So how are you guys approaching these new conversations? Massimo, how are you starting conversations with prospects right now?
So I think that's the ultimate question right now. And I want to preface my answer with, I think it depends on a lot of factors, what industries and verticals you're selling into. If I were selling into events companies, it's going to be a very different answer to if I'm selling to companies like Zoom or Amazon, who right now are probably doing better from this situation than any other. I'm fortunate enough to work for a company that has been primarily inbound for the last 5-6 years. And so although I have been shifted to the outbound team recently, we've kind of all took this opportunity to recalibrate and recognize that it's probably not the most appropriate time to try and start new conversations with cold prospects who've never heard of us or don't know anything about us. So instead, what we're doing is we're taking an approach where we're finding the people who are raising their hands, that are signing up for our free plan, who are signing up for our blog subscription and interested about video in particular, and just offering help. We're not trying to sell to them. Literally all that I'm doing in my outreach is saying, hey, I'm here to help. I outline the situation, make sure they know that I'm not trying to sell them anything. It's true. We're right now not in the place where that is our primary goal. It really is to try and help people through a time where I think everyone could use a little bit more help.
Well said. Julianne, what are your recommendations for starting conversations?
Yeah, so I think this is definitely the hottest topic on LinkedIn right now. So you'll see a lot of opinions about to cold call or not to cold call. I think it definitely does depend. It depends on what you sell, and it depends on who you sell into. And do you have a solution that actually can help companies with this situation? But regardless, I think there's a really short answer to this debate. It's that no matter what you decide to do, make sure you do it with empathy. And, I think this is actually a really unique opportunity for young sellers to kind of ditch the idea of, are we B2B or are we B2C, and just focus on being human to human and focus on those, opportunities to humanize your sales process, whether it be in the prospecting, parts of the sales cycle, or if it's, working with customers and making sure that, you're checking in, are they doing okay? Not just with your product, but are they actually doing okay? And if there's anything that you can genuinely do to help.
Tim, what are your thoughts on starting the conversation?
Yeah, I think Massimo and Julian both made great points. I think it's about leading with empathy. The focus right now is to start building relationships and create a good first impression. I think companies that come across as opportunistic or too pushy or too selly right now are really going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths once we get to the other side of this crisis. So it's be relevant, be respectful, be relatable. And I think if you kind of adhere to those core principles, people are going to respond to what you have to say. And, don't try to stick a square peg in a round hole. If you're trying to sell into a vertical that might not necessarily be your ICP, or you're not talking to the right person, be understanding. And if also, there's a component of, I think, being bold. If you call someone and they're not the right person, don't be afraid to ask. Be like, hey, I totally, I think I might be off base here. Who else could I speak with, in your organization, if it makes sense, and then go from there and try to forge another relationship. But it's really about, it's being overly empathetic right now, because we're all experiencing, something that we've never seen before in our lives.
Kind of to piggyback, we're in a different industry because, we deal a lot with email, and, we had started this push with education because it was right around the time of registration, and the world got crazy and all of a sudden, they were sending all the students home, and that was the time we started calling in, and people were like, why are you even calling us? But, moving ahead 3-4 weeks to where we are today, that's how they're communicating with their students. That's how they're getting their curriculum and their syllabus. And this is how, they're going to be doing all of their recruiting efforts. And so definitely staying on top of that and understanding, again, what the needs are of our prospect base has never been more important.
Yeah, and so we brought this up actually a few times, and this is again, perfect segue into what are those verticals that are just best to reach out to right now that you're seeing, that you're able to be empathetic to and you don't want to over communicate with right now. So Massimo, since you brought it up first, let's start with what you're seeing.
Yeah, I've definitely am advocating to my team because I've seen some short-term success right now with LinkedIn. I think, you know, that is a place right now that we've alluded to that more people are posting, more people are looking for help, and more people are open to connecting than ever before. And I think if the context makes sense and you can help someone, there's no reason why you shouldn't open that conversation up. And when I'm doing this, the last thing I'm doing is coming in with a sales pitch by any means. I think there's so many ways that all the companies you see in this forum right now that we can help surrounding this case. You know, I talk about that, you know, Wistia, we're not going to build ventilators. We can't do that. We don't have that knowledge, but we can help with video. We can help with webcams, and people don't know how to set up their webcams. They're working from home for the first time. And so just helping with small things like that people are posting about on LinkedIn, that can eventually build into something in the future. And so I'm trying to use that really strategically and just help people where I see I can help, and leave it at that. And you know, maybe in a few months more time when it makes more sense to follow up with those people.
Great. Tim, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I think Massimo kind of hit the nail on the head. It's really, at this point in time, it's about creating deposits. So it's if you have really good knowledge or really good ideas, this is the time to share them, because people across the board are struggling to figure out, how do I pivot from this old strategy to a new strategy? So if going on LinkedIn is, you know, we all understand there's a lot of noise there, but it's being able to kind of distill that down to what are the things that I'm trying to accomplish. And I think, and I'm sure we'll get to this at some point, I think right now, people who are interested in anything, you know, and this is product agnostic, they're going to raise their hand. And I think because everything is so crazy right now, we're all working from home, our times are being, you know, divided into multiple different categories. I think it's a unique position for salespeople, because when you particularly get inbound interest, it's coming from a place of someone's like, I'm raising my hand because I need guidance, I need help. So I think we're all uniquely positioned to not waste anyone's time, because they're coming to us because it's something that is top of mind, and they want to have a conversation. Whether or not they can purchase right now or not, that's completely irrelevant. Irrelevant. It's just let's have a conversation and kind of get kicked off.
Yeah. So establishing those relationships now, again, back to that human to human thing that we were discussing earlier. So let's shift a little bit over into how you're running your teams and how you're managing that process right now. How do you hold your teams accountable when they're not in the office? I know that's a big question. So Julianne, let's start with you.
Yeah, so it was very timely. I actually ran an exercise with my team about a week before everybody moved remote, where we talked about accountability. And I don't like to micromanage. I don't think any managers like to micromanage, and I don't think reps like to be micromanaged. And the way that you solve that is with team accountability. So the exercise that we did is, it was a version of Simon Sinek's Golden Circle, start with why. So we talked about the word accountability and what does that mean? And so I drew it on a whiteboard. You'd have to do some visual version of that right now, but wrote the word accountability and said, okay, what does that mean? What does it mean to hold each other accountable? Okay, how are we going to do that? And so we came up with very specific tactics that the team came up with and then assigned different leaders and captains to. And then we talked about why. Why is it important to hold each other accountable? And it came from a place of, you know, I didn't want to come in and say, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, I need you to do that, because we've all been on the receiving end of that and it doesn't go well, versus if you let the team come up with a solution themselves. And as a result, you know, we've thought through, you know, daily check-ins. I know Melissa mentioned the buddy system. And then also having an opportunity to celebrate wins, I think is a big, big part of this. It is harder to generate pipeline right now. And we have to be able to celebrate the small wins, because that will help build up the motivation and also kind of get you out of this mindset of like, everything is so hard right now. It doesn't have to be so hard right now. And there are things that are, you know, working. There are companies that are selling. And, we need to just keep that positive mindset by celebrating the wins.
We do an SDR of the month, and that is voted on by their peers. I don't have any input into that one whatsoever. It's all based on the company values. So I send out the email at the end of every month. It's my favorite email that I get to send, which is kind of like the recap of the winner. And I include all of the honorable mentions because I love being able to tell the team members, what their team is saying about each other. And it's really inspiring for me to see how collaborative they are. And especially this month, seeing the comments like, I was out of the office and this person checked on me to make sure I was okay because they saw I was offline. Or, this person called me proactively because they know I'm new and said, hey, do you want to hop on with me via Zoom this afternoon? Just to shadow me and see kind of my processes. And so I love being able to see things like that. But really celebrating those wins, like what's working well, let's talk about those. Spiff dollars are always a great thing too, when you can incent people even for small things, because not only is it about accountability, it's about engagement. So tomorrow afternoon, for example, we're hopping offline at 4:00. I'm getting everybody on for a virtual happy hour. I've told them, come with your most creative background for your Zoom call. And best background gets $25. It's not work related, but it's just something fun to kind of break up the monotony of the day. I'm trying to think what else we can do. I might have them wear Halloween costumes one day next week. We'll see. But, just things to keep people not only accountable, but engaged, because you've got to be engaged too.
And bringing that humor back into it. I love that. Keeping it fun and just keeping it light when things are not so light everywhere. Tim, Massimo, any additional thoughts on how to keep the teams accountable?
Yeah, so some parity between what Julianne and Melissa said, but it's really, we do every morning, 8 a.m., we have a sales team stand up. So we get together at 8 a.m., everyone on the sales team, BDRs, AEs, account managers, and, we just kind of check in, kind of what are we focusing on for today? What are some, important, obviously celebrating wins and really like the right behavior. I have 2 check-ins with my team a day in the morning, just to say, hey, like, what does your guys' day look like? This is what my day looks like. So they understand when I'm available and when I'm not. So if they ping me when I'm in a meeting, for instance, being on this call with all you wonderful people, they know that I'm not necessarily available, but I'll get back to them. And then we use, we do Alice lunches. So we've actually, believe it or not, we've had some new hires despite the crisis that's going on. But also virtual happy hours, doing trivia as a team remotely has been a lot of fun. And then, just make sure we celebrate everything. We also use Hoopla. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hoopla, but it's a cool, kind of gamification, kind of sales engagement tool that we load on our computers so we can see when people create new opportunities, if we close business and stuff like that. So it's a great way to be able to kind of celebrate wins, from our homes.
So another excellent segue. What are the tools that you have found to be invaluable for your team to stay on track? Let's start with you, Massimo.
So I think it's all the usual ones, but just using them kind of with better organization and more thought. So thinking about, the calendar, making sure it's all up to date, Slack, conversations that normally you'd be having in person, just being really thorough and thoughtful with your Slack messages. And when you believe it should be not a text message, but a call, you can quickly use that. And then obviously Zoom for both, meetings, but also one thing we've been doing, which I've loved, is we have social Zooms every day that anyone can start. We've had show and tells, we've had happy hours, we've had tractors where a guy literally just walked around his field of tractors and told the whole company about his hobby of collecting tractors and how they work. Like, it's just been amazing from a cultural perspective of getting a more human idea of how everyone lives their day-to-day and what they're into. And so using these tools to kind of facilitate that and keep the culture when it is quite tough when you're not actually meeting face to face.
That's a great point. I actually feel like you actually have this more, again, human to human connection, and you can actually connect with somebody more deeply, and you can take that into when the world returns to hopefully normal. But to know that someone has a tractor collection or they've got 10 cats or whatever it is, it's just a good conversation to move forward with. So tips and tools, Tim, what are you working with?
A lot of the same stuff that Massimo said. So Zoom, Slack, making sure that just inside of Salesforce, making sure that our team members have the reports that they need to stay on track and they can measure their own progress. And then also using a tool that we use internally. It's called Lessonly, just for enablement. So we'll do these kind of really broad ranging, if we're doing product updates or if there's things changing internally, just making sure that people have a really easy, digestible way to learn new information about the company. And also we can do some quizzes and stuff in there, but it's really a great way to see how people are learning and kind of consuming information about the company, which I think has been great. And then to kind of even piggyback on Massimo again, kind of doing like Alice Cribs. So like we do like Alice lunches. So someone will kind of talk about their 5 to 9, something they're really passionate about. I'm really passionate about sneakers. So like I did a lunch yesterday and I kind of like showed everyone my whole sneaker collection. So it's really cool just to like connect with people and really kind of surface up interests that people may or may not have been, they might have been shy to talk about it before. But now that like you're literally inviting people into your home, it's a really cool way to connect with people and build stronger connections.
Great point. Julianne, any tools you're using?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we're basically doing a fast track of the digital transformation. So if you think about all the tools that we were using digitally, we're now using at a faster rate. Video being a huge one, which I know we've talked about a few times today, but not just video and communication with your peers internally, but also with your prospects, I think is a really interesting new channel to really expand on. So the conversational marketing place specifically is changing in the way that different ICPs are coming in and trying to figure out how to leverage conversational marketing. And then sales engagement, I think, is a really important place right now. So we use outreach and being able to, as a manager, see what's going on with reps, what messages are working right now, what messages are not, and being able to measure that really quickly and experiment on that, I think has been really important.
And if I can piggyback on what Julianne just said, we're leveraging Gong, and we've been able to create trackers that actually tag when someone brings up different keywords so that it can help us coach as we're hearing these things. So it's not just the word COVID or Corona, it's the word freeze, like a budget freeze, or virus, or climate. Some of these buzzwords that we're leveraging, but it can help us to understand what are our SDRs hearing regularly? What are the challenges they're overcoming? Can we coach to that? And are we always going to be able to book a meeting? No, but it also helps us to understand, to coach to them as people with what they're hearing on the phone, so that at least we can tailor our messaging to be softer, more compassionate, and really, tailor that messaging to help them know that, when times do get better, here's how we may be able to help. Not necessarily right now, but we may be able to provide value in the future when you get to the other side of this. So that's been a huge tool we've relied on as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. We've run out of time for today. Do you have any advice or anything you'd like to say to all SDRs and BDRs out there working from their couches and dining room tables? Any closing thoughts?
Reach out to somebody on your team just to say hi. They may need it more than you do.
Love that.
Yeah.
That was like a mic drop. I don't think I have anything to add to that. No, that's such great advice. I was going to say, just stay positive. I think like what's really hard to do is it's hard to stay above the conversation because it can feel very heavy. If you start thinking about all the implications, it can be tough. So just control what you can control, stay positive, and wash your hands. That's all.
Yeah, Julianne, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, control the controllables, keep your chin up, And to Melissa's point, yeah, this is a time where we all need to connect more and make sure that there's people around us who are in need, and that might just be a phone call or a text message. So definitely reach out to someone that you care about and let them know how you're feeling.
Wonderful. Massimo, any last thoughts?
Oh, I think Tim needs to take us home with that. That was too good.
Perfect. I love how Julianne threw in the wash your hands too. That was wonderful. So awesome. Thanks again to our guests from Drift, Alice, Wistia, and Validity for joining us today. And thank you everyone for watching and listening to our show. Have a great day and stay safe. Bye.
Thank you.
Wash those hands.
Wash those hands.